All right. Hello, everyone. Let's kick off this fireside session. My name is Jessica, and I'm a senior CSM here at UpGuard. And I'm joined here with George Wiemer, the Global Senior Director of Cybersecurity and Risk at Combe. Today, we talked a ton about the coordination lag, really all of those time sucks that you guys deal with on a day-to-day, collecting risk assessments, questionnaires, communicating with vendors, trying to report internally on all the work you're doing. And George is going to be here today to help answer some of your questions and speak very freely about how he started to create a really great feedback loop with his vendors and partners. We want to move from being an auditor to actually creating that partnership where vendors are excited to hear what we have to say and do some of the work for us to become a security first organization. George, you've spent a lot of time at Estee Lauder and Herbalife, and you've been here at Combe for about 4 years. I'd love to hear just more about what Combe does, who you are, and how big your team is.
Well, thank you, Jessica, for the opportunity today, and hopefully everybody's having a great summit. Again, my name is George Wiemer. I work for a company named Combe Incorporated. We're a privately held company that's family owned. Happy to say the company is over 77 years old, and they're on their third generation of family still running the business. Personal care products, CPG, 11 locations around the globe. Mid-tier in market size, inching on enterprise, but we have 3 distribution centers that manufacture the product, and we have locations in the US, EMEA, and Asia Pacific. So for me, like Jessica mentioned, I've been with the company since 2022. I started just shy of the fourth quarter and came from other organizations. So coming into this organization, there was an opportunity where they were going through a journey of a digital transformation. Digital transformation means a lot, but one of the things that they were investing in is really moving forward with consolidating a lot of their lines of business products that they were using that were on-prem and using subscription models. So it was a lot going on in a short period of time. When I started, I realized that pretty quickly that we're going to have to do a lot of evaluations of the new products and services that we want to consider. And as a good partner and stakeholder to the lines of business, make my recommendations of risk evaluations. In the beginning, we were doing them manually, right? It took a lot of time and work. So if you had more than 5 or 6, it was really time consuming to really do it in a way that you'd feel confident and have an output that you could recognize to a recommendation. We took the opportunity to look across the industry and with third-party risk management tools and services, and we looked at a bunch. Conversations with UpGuard right up front were very promising. So we kind of dove right in. Right away, I was able to really maximize a lot of things that was taking me multiple hours and days, really to shorten it down. What I really enjoy about the product is the agility, right? What you put into it is really going to get out of it. We're about 2.5 years into products and services, but also what I've seen with UpGuard is the trajectory of keep on advancing with R&I and R&D into their products. So, it's been a great partnership, and we look forward to continuing it.
No, thanks so much for that insight, George. For those of you that don't know here as well at the summit today, I'm actually George's CSM. So I've seen him walk through this process and really build this out with Combe over the last few years. And if you wouldn't mind sharing, when did you start to realize that the manual work that you were doing and the processes you were building out had to start becoming a little bit more and more automated to scale as we started doing more and more assessments?
Really wanted to be honest with the stakeholders that I was doing the work for. So overseeing and designing a framework of risk management, I wanted to make sure that I was giving a fair assessment of everything. So to do that in a way that we didn't show any favoritism, I wanted to make sure that we could use a service that would help us do that. Again, building out a practice, we started with a framework of NIST. With that, we wanted to make sure when we're working with new partners, these are the things that we want to entertain and understand what risks that we need to know about or how your processes work. So, I think in the beginning it was a little unique to me because some of it was a little bumpy where people would question, why are we doing this? It's not an industry standard. I take a breath and understand, yes, we need to do this. We're doing an evaluation of against your products and services, and we understand we need to know, and we're going to keep on asking until you give us the answers, or you won't be qualified. But there's been other scenarios where the companies really have trust centers, very open conversations. To me, it's about building a relationship, building trust, building understanding, how we can partner together. I always say to these partners as we're building our relationship is we're gonna work together as a team, and we're gonna continue that relationship and build it. Similar with UpGuard and working with Jessica and her team, we've done that over time, and we kept on moving forward. The automation for me is key. I'm a very lean team, and the right partners and the services are key. Right? So what you put into it, like I mentioned, tagging and understanding your tiers of once you build your portfolio is key, and then labeling accordingly. And then you can run reporting against it once you build your portfolio. But also the opportunity to do risk assessments without even sending the questionnaire out, maybe doing it if they have a trust center and compiling the information and getting at least a baseline score is tremendous to understanding the partnership that you're trying to build with the new potential service you want to give guidance to the business.
No, that's awesome. Thank you. And I've, obviously had the pleasure of seeing you do all of this firsthand, and I have to say I'm quite proud. You talk a lot about, showing value to stakeholders internally and working with vendors that maybe are new that are going through procurement and explaining this, but especially in your industry and a lot of our clients here today at Summit, manufacturing is an interesting industry to have to work with, right? You've been in business for 70 plus years, you're family owned. There's a lot of ma and pa's, a lot of vendors that maybe aren't security centric. How have you started to help even relate to them the importance of risk assessments, why they need to answer these questionnaires, how you could give insights to them as well, to help, mature their process? You don't want to cut off business with a great relationship, but they may not be security focused yet.
Yes, that's a great question. And, what we've designed over time was a tiering approach. Some of the questionnaire that you might ask to maybe a flagship SaaS service that's doing ERP services compared to a smaller entity with 10 employees, you're not gonna put the same rigor around it. So, be intimidating in saying, well, you got to fill out this 150 questions, and then I'm going to have 150 questions after the fact. Obviously, at times, is really going to be challenging. So, again, with UpGuard, there's the opportunity to tier it and customize the evaluations, right? So we started doing that over time. Once we built a portfolio of what the lines of business vendors are, their tiers, and when somebody comes right in, what tier should they be at? And then we can evaluate them appropriately.
No, that's fantastic. And I do want to remind all of you here as well, there is a Q&A section, so feel free to throw your questions in for us. You know how it works. You throw the Q, we give the A if we want to answer it. So I'd love to start answering some of those as well. George, we're talking about the vendors that go through procurement, the ones that you've had as a relationship for 30, 40 years. What about the shadow side of it? How have you been trying to approach shadow AI, shadow SaaS, and understand how to assess those vendors that you may not even have a contract with or pay?
So that's been very fast paced, and I'm sure for many attendees at the summit today, many are faced with the same challenges that I am and others in the industry, right? So, to be marketable, you have to have something that's going to be associated to AI, to be in technology, right? Now, the more vetted companies that are flagship, such as the Microsofts, the Oracles, OpenAI, Anthropic, they're going to have a certain stance already. But the smaller ones that are just building, maybe then is going to be a little different because they may not have made the investment yet and what the policies and procedures are going to be. So at times we get into those conversations where the business has sourced out a partner that we want to investigate. There's times where we kind of do the initial consultation, and really they're stuck in the assessment because they're not there yet. What we say is, we're not going to discredit you, but at this time, let us know when you're going to advance to get to a certain point. When are you going to commit to your SOC 2 Type 2? When you get to that point, we'll come back and reevaluate. It's not that we're saying no, but we're saying no with a K because we need to know more.
Yeah,
that's actually worked out pretty well. Yeah, that's actually worked out pretty well. And it's really a justified answer to work with the business because we want to make sure that in partnership and in spirit, that we're looking at their best interest.
No, that's awesome. And I think Noah the K, I'm going to start using that. So all my clients on the call here today, pretend you didn't hear that because that's coming at you the next quarterly session. Even outside of that, I think working with particular vendors throughout the life cycle, maybe not even during those reassessment periods, those procurement periods when you're identifying them, it's still important to show them that you're keeping your guard up throughout that year or 2-year engagement. How have you worked to use UpGuard and work with your team to make sure that you're bringing those insights to the vendor in real time too?
Well, once you build up your inventory and you have your tiering, then you can report accordingly, right? So you're going to have your flagship vendors that you want to have at the highest tier and understand their scoring. If it's going to deviate to a certain percentage difference that you're not comfortable or it's managed against the industry rating, you're going to have a near conversation. So you can either ask the question to them via the UpGuard portal to reassess on something, or have that consultation and understand why some of their scoring has dipped down. Understanding how things are measured at times, it's more about where you are and how you're going to reestablish that baseline. So we've had discussions with partners at times where, they had a stable baseline and then they kind of dipped a little bit. Really understanding for us to really communicate and work in a trusted partnership, how they proceed to get where we feel more comfortable with. And those open communications usually help because really at the end of the day, you're partnering together. But in the bigger scenarios, I think earlier on, we didn't really have that visibility into the inventory of the scoring of where all our tiers were. So we were being reactive. We were getting communicated from the sales team or others that this partner has potentially been breached and they want to communicate to you. I'd rather have the conversation the other way, but we're having the forward conversation proactively than reactively.
No, that's great. And let's kick into some of the questions here as well. Let's see. Sorry, guys, I can't read and present at the same time. We'll share this one in here. At what point does NIST aligned stop being a checkbox and start being operational maturity?
Well, I would say that's a great question because I think, NIST as a framework may not apply to everybody, right? Again, I'm in a private company. It probably is a little, at times, with all the functions, comes a little tedious. But really, I think it's really up to you. If Antonio asking this question, it's really up to you to understand what you want to apply, and if you have to go to a regulatory compliance, if you're applying it towards Sarbanes-Oxley, if you're applying it to something that's related to credit card industry, PCI. To me, that's always a better conversation when you could say, well, we need this because this is our compliancy needs. That's the best way I would usually address those questions.
No, that's great. And to this point as well, with UpGuard itself, how have you started to use things like the security profile to allow you to customize your NIST needs based on vendors?
So, it's interesting. NIST may not apply. It's our overall framework, but CIS at sometimes will be more used because just the tiering of the vendor. If you're a tier 3 vendor, and that's kind of a lower scale for us, you may not really have to have that questionnaire be as brutal, right? But we really want to get certain facts and information understood, is just to have that quality discussion with the scoring.
That's awesome. Let's move to another one. Thanks for that one, Antonio. All right. Have you ever recommended to the business that the risk of continuing a relationship with a longtime vendor was too great? And if so, how did you approach this discussion with those business leaders?
Matthew, thank you for that question. And I think all of us that are kind of taking the oath to understand the work with the business and you want to put a risk adverse discussion. I've had those discussions with vendors that we've used for multiple years, and there really was no governance and guardrails around it. So bringing it up front, I think it's all about the partnership, and really it's not that you want to stop doing business, but how do you want to remediate it so you feel more comfortable, right? So I think it's sometimes in today's day and age, your partners are third party, could be fourth party, understanding all the risks that you're putting together, and then bringing that forward to the business to say, well, these are my recommendations of controls we should put in place, and put a little more demand in the next renegotiation of the contract. So a lot of times, putting that little more contractual based in the MSA will definitely help lead the discussion.
No, that's great. And obviously knowing you well enough and knowing that both of us are from New York, I know that you don't shy away from those tough conversations. So is there any insight of verbiage or ways that you've helped work with the vendor, whether it's through contract or giving that long-term plan that you think may help Matthew if he finds himself in this situation?
We have recommended at times that maybe they onboard some external support, bring on a virtual CISO, bring on somebody to help them really get some guardrails put in place that would help to not only retain us as a customer, but the continuation to do business within the industry that they're in.
That's great. Thank you, Matthew, for that one again. We'll move to this one here from Andrew. One of the greatest calls in vendor risk evaluation is how to evaluate vendors of your vendors. What do you suggest on this?
Can you just repeat that? My apologies.
Yeah, vendors of your vendors. We're looking at the fourth party side.
Yeah, so, that is definitely, something that's, you got to know the whole ecosystem, right? So when you're signing up for a certain subscription or services, understanding, in the industry that I work in, there could be a broker involved. There could be somebody else that's involved in the whole supply chain. So, UpGuard does offer those features and services at the third party to fourth party, and we started leveraging them most recently. And again, it's new. It's new, not for the industry, but something that we're diving into most recently.
No, certainly. And it's very scary. You hear fourth party and everyone kind of jumps. It's like you see the boogeyman, right? We're finally getting third party risk handled. And then all of a sudden, fourth party becomes the taboo topic and third party is the standard out of nowhere. So yeah, UpGuard's fourth parties are great, but I really appreciate your insight there on how to manage it. All right, let's go to Kenny's here. For a small TPRM team, what's the most impactful automation you've introduced, and how did it improve visibility into actionable risk?
Thanks, Kenny, for that question. Again, working for a mid-market company, you definitely have a small agile team. So, we invested in products and tools and services that are going to be able to allow us to do our capabilities within the security field. So the ability to actually, what I mentioned before, is to take information from attempting to complete a third-party risk assessment, and if the inspiring company that you're looking at has a trust center, able to take the information, download it, upload it, tag them, and then get an evaluation, that turnaround is probably within less than 30 minutes, right? That doesn't mean it's your final evaluation, but it gives you a good start, right? And understanding where you want to start the conversations. At times, I think aligning to the business of what their cadence of schedule is. We don't want to be in a position where the MSA is already signed. They're looking to invoice, and we're doing the third-party risk assessment, right? So, but I think moving forward, the orchestration is something that we're starting to lean into, and really automation. So more to come on that.
No, that's awesome. Thanks, Kenny, for that question as well. I think we'll start wrapping up. Even I might have a separate question of my own. It's what's your favorite third-party risk management platform, but we'll leave that one for later. In all seriousness, thanks, George. I really appreciate you coming, sharing the story, all of the fun stuff that we've done over the last 2 years and all the stuff that's still to come here. All of you here watching, feel free to reach out to George or myself if you have any additional questions. And if we didn't get to yours, we certainly will in an email follow-up. George, any last statements?
I wish everybody a great summit. I've attended them multiple times. Jessica, thank you for the opportunity today, and the rest of the UpGuard team.
All right. With that, thank you guys all so much for joining.